U.S. soldiers in Ukraine pulling out amid warnings of imminent Russian invasion.
Here's a summary of the article.
U.S. troops in Ukraine are pulling out as U.S. officials are growing increasingly concerned of an impending Russian invasion. 160 Florida National Guard soldiers, the only known U.S. troops in the country, are being repositioned elsewhere in Europe, Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby said in a statement released Saturday morning. Those troops, assigned to the 53rd Infantry Brigade Combat Team, were a part of a previously planned training mission with Ukrainian forces, mostly operating far from the country's border where Russian President Vladimir Putin has amassed some 130,000 troops. U.S. troops from different units have been rotating to train Ukraine's military since 2015, with the Florida soldiers arriving in November as Russian forces were amassing. Biden has pledged that U.S. troops will not fight in Ukraine, which is not a member of NATO. But the news comes as thousands of U.S. soldiers, alongside troops from other European powers including the United Kingdom and France, mobilize to bolster NATO's eastern flank. A senior State Department official told reporters Saturday that it is past time for Americans to leave Ukraine, saying routine embassy services, such as help with passports, in Kyiv will be suspended on Sunday as key personnel evacuate. Roughly 1,000 U.S. troops with the 2nd Cavalry Regiment, a Stryker squadron based out of Germany, are in the midst of deploying to Romania.
This post received a score of 5,900, with an upvote ratio of 96%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
As Biden said, when Americans and Russians are shooting at each other, it's a world war.
Can I ask why? Like, why would it turn into a world war? Because of NATO?
Because in the modern world, we don't let bully countries invade other free nations. Vladimir Putin literally said he'd resort to nukes if Ukraine joined NATO and would wage war on all of Europe, despite having a smaller army than all of NATO forces. Also fuck everyone in Russia who is promoting Putin and downplaying the invasion of another nation. Putin said himself he would use nukes on Europe. How the fuck are you okay with that statement?
I mean, short of economically crippling Russia, which I'm sure the US and allies intend to do if they invade, I think the Russians will be allowed to invade a free nation with relatively little consequence. The US and NATO aren't going to fling themselves into a WW3 scenario over Ukraine.
Oh yeah, they'd be economically fucked over. Russia's economy is already teetering on failure and US and allies placing sanctions or straight up cutting them off to things like semiconductors would push them over the edge into a full-on depression. Sadly, Putin will be fine but his people will suffer massively. But maybe that's what needs to happen so Russians can see his incompetence and start a revolution once and for all. In terms responding with military force, only time will tell. But as mostly everyone, I'd prefer we don't dive into WW3.
RIA Novosti, Russian media, just came out with this article. The Radar announced the preparation of Zelensky for the massacre of Russians. Here is Russia's casus belli. This is all so predictable and sad.
Wow. T is so much like Hitler's rants about German suffering in the Czechoslovak Sudetenland. Does anyone know what the endgame is here? If Russia invade, then obviously the West are not going to go as easy on them as they did in Georgia and the Crimea. So the spoils have to be worth the price. I doubt he goes all the way to Kiev, but maybe he just takes the eastern part of the country. Then from a position of power he can seek autonomy for the separatist areas in the east. It just seems like we are missing something in the way Putin thinks. How can he possibly win here? By that I don't mean militarily.
He can destabilize Ukraine and hold it hostage to the rest of the world. Basically create a big mess that everyone will want resolved, putting him in a position of power. He can also ensure that Ukraine won't join NATO, which is his biggest fear. These type of antics are the only way Putin can continue to command the world's attention.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.